Very often, I get asked the question, why? Why are you going to such places? Don't you think of your kids, your family? Well, usually my first reaction would be, I love adventure, adrenaline, the excitement it gives me. But I'm sure there's something much deeper, deep down inside me about this. I started photography at the young age of 16, and quickly it felt like something I could do all my life. I absolutely hated school, hated being around others, and I felt like being on my own with my camera. It was like my protection. For most of my teenage life, I struggled with so much anxiety and panic attacks. Almost getting one right now, by the way. I would always choose being on my own, going for long bike rides, explore abandoned buildings, and this fixation I had with photography and the weather. My dad used to yell at me, "You're going to be like the black sheep of the family if you don't pursue your studies any further." But then he bought me my first camera in 1997, a Minolta Dynax 300 SI, which I still have to this very day. Today, 25 years into photojournalism, I get goosebumps at looking back at that moment and understanding what unpacking that box actually meant for the rest of my life. I started experimenting with lightning photography. Yeah, I was almost struck by lightning once, and soon after that, I had my first image published in the newspaper. The same newspaper ended up employing me as their press photographer. After a decade in press photography and crazy paparazzi stunts all over the island, I wanted more. I was hungry. It was obvious living on such a small island was not going to fulfill my passion for photojournalism. I spent countless hours watching CNN, Al Jazeera, about the current war in Gaza. I was fixated. I kept saying, I wish I am there. I want to be there. But then I said, like, actually, wait, what's keeping me? I'm going to go there. I picked up my bright yellow Nokia 3100 for those who remember the model. I called my dad, who's seated right there today. And I told him, Dad, I'm flying to Israel tomorrow. I will try and enter Gaza. I assumed he's going to send me to hell, like, what are you thinking? But instead, he encouraged me and told me, do everything with caution, take it easy, but please stay safe. In winter 2009, I flew for the very first time in Israel. Entering Gaza was no walk in the park. It took days of paperwork and endless calls to so many politicians just to get approval for entrance. As I entered Gaza finally through a metal door, I found myself in a 1 kilometer buffer zone where you cannot stop moving. Keep walking forward, never stop. Until I arrived on the Gaza side. I was so excited, probably the first Maltese to have ever entered Gaza, and I was still so young. I checked into the only hotel still standing inside Gaza called the Adam Hotel. I was asked to be given the room at the highest point of the hotel for safety reasons, and the first thing I did was remove all the glass windows from my room. The first night was a very long one. We had non-stop bombs falling all over Gaza City, the center which was 3 kilometers away just to my east. The hotel owner was pleading with me, please come down to the shelter, but I refused, just because I was petrified from cockroaches. I instead moved my mattress into the bathroom and I spent the whole night in my bathtub, in full protection gear from head to toe, with my mattress above my head. Gaza was the first time I got to experience how horrible humankind can actually be. Street after street of blown up houses with kids or people still trapped inside it. Walking around the rubble was many body parts everywhere, mixed with kids' toys, sometimes body parts still attached to these toys, and household items. As a war photojournalist, I need to remain impartial. My job is not to take sides or try not to. My job is to send out my images to the world of anything that's taking place in front of me, and then let the audience decide what is right and what is wrong. In Gaza, I struggled with this so much. I had never seen such scenes. Kids' body parts hanging on walls, literally. Parents screaming for God from help, and at times I questioned, where is God? What have these kids ever done? On my last day in Gaza, I was detained and beat up by Hamas as I tried to enter one of their secret underground tunnels connecting Rafah and Egypt. It was only my Maltese language because I was swearing by mistake, and my friendship between the late President Guido de Marco and Arafat that actually kept me alive. Exiting Gaza back into Israel was yet another hurdle I never expected. I was stripped in my boxers, and I was left for hours in a cold room with soldiers on the other side taking the piss out of me. All my belongings had been messed up, or my camera gear had been dumped in a box together with other items belonging to an Italian priest. All my images had been taken and downloaded from my camera. I felt violated because I thought I was not the enemy here. I'm just a photographer. I spent the next days covering the Israeli side of the conflict also, where I had witnessed so many rockets falling from Gaza into Israel. And the hate that I felt between these people is something unimaginable. On the 17th of December 2010, during the Arab Spring, I covered some of the demonstrations that took place in Tunis and also in Egypt. The situation in Tunis was pretty much calmer than Cairo. In Tunis, I felt safe. In Cairo, I was threatened. I needed police protection even to get back to my hotel. The date was the 20th of March 2011. Only a month after the revolution in Libya had started, I left Cairo by bus. 13 hours later, I got to the Libyan border where I was turned back and denied entry. But after such a long way, being so hard-headed, I was not going to give up so easily. I made quick friends with with locals on the border who agreed to smuggle me in. And I thought, this is mad. Smuggle myself in the middle of a war in Libya. But anyway, long story short, I made it in. I later made friends with these rebels close to Tobruk who agreed to drive me 9 hours west of Benghazi. That was where the actual front line was at that time. Once I got in Benghazi, I witnessed so many kilometers of destruction, blown up tanks, military equipment everywhere. There were so many bodies belonging to Gaddafi loyalists left to rot on the streets. I was taken to a large room, like a hangar, where I saw with my own eyes how inhumane war could be. The smell, the flies, the heavily decomposing bodies lie everywhere. This moment will be stuck in my head for life. It has affected me in many more ways, apart from sometimes severe PTSD, waking up screaming in the middle of the night. I apologize to my wife. This moment changed my life. I was full of anger for so many months after, with so many questions running in my head. The next day, I met a kid named Mohammed who told me that he lost most of his family members in the war, and now this gun will protect him for the rest of his life. The look in his eyes is just a glare, like a zombie. A 12-year-old should be in school playing and learning life, not fighting a bloody war. This was my last photo I had taken during the Arab Spring. I later returned home, where it took me several months to start functioning properly again. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I had so much hate towards the world I lived in. At the end of 2011, I briefly entered Syria from Libya, where along the way I met so many refugees in these camps fleeing from the war. On my second day, just past midnight, I decided to try and cross into Homs city with some locals I had met at the same camps. Our group came under fire and everyone fled in all directions. In the chaos, unfortunately, I was hit right in the chest. My Kevlar vest had stopped the stray bullet, but my body still took the full impact, fracturing my ribs. It was probably the first time I was really scared for my life in a war zone. To make matters worse, I told my dad, sorry, dad. I told him I'm going to go to Petra on holiday. A bit different from that. I decided to lay low all night flat in the sand and wait for the first light. I was cold, very much in pain, and clearly I had pissed myself. In these situations, you need to assess your surroundings very, very well. Think every step, because your next step could definitely be your last. At first light, when I could see my surroundings, I decided it was safe enough to walk around. By the end of the same day, I had walked out, been hospitalized in a neighboring country, and I flew back home to recover. My photography over the years has taken me to every corner on earth. One particular country which I have to heart is Iran, which I have visited on several occasions. Iran has given me the opportunity of seeing this country from a different perspective. You know, the one that we see on the mainstream media is so different. Political issues aside, obviously, I found myself in a stunning photogenic country with so many interesting people. During another trip I did in Iran, I was in the corner between Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran. And on the hills, we had these snipers following our car every movement. The king of Lud Desert actually entered our vehicle to guarantee a safe passage. And he told us he had 38 kids in this village. Imagine that, 38 kids. And these kids are some of his. This village had never seen a tourist in their lives. It was forbidden for tourists to even go close to this place. Curious kids started approaching me very slowly, and their face reminded me of the very famous photo by Steve McCurry called The Afghan Girl. A couple of months later, I visited Iraq. It was not long after Saddam Hussein was overthrown. I entered Iraq legally. And when I say legally, it means for the very first time I flew into the country, paid for my visa, instead of walking across some desert. I was particularly struck by the friendliness of the people there, mesmerized by the size of the Babylon ruins. And, yep, I got to take a pee inside Saddam Hussein's solid marble shower. All his palaces had been vandalized, but still one could understand the power he once had. In the first week of 2022, I flew into Poland and I crossed into Ukraine by train. This was only a few weeks after Russia had started its invasion of Ukraine. Getting a train from Lviv to Kiev was practically impossible, but after 38 hours of traveling and sleeping on the floor in Lviv, I had almost given up. On the next morning, I was given a train ticket to Kiev, where I shared the next 16 hours in a crammed train with 6 Ukrainian men going back to fight. My journey began by meeting my fixer at the train station. A fixer is a person of trust in a conflict zone who you must trust with your life. He charges you a fixed fee, and he would provide you with a car, fuel, all the information you need: where to go, where not to go, where are the mines, and if need be, in many cases, he would provide me with my own weapons. Our journey started by driving northwest of Kiev. We were only 1 hour away from small villages of Irpin and Bucha. People were shot in the head while riding their bikes. Kids lay dead in the streets. Dogs were feasting on their corpse because there was no food. The smell of death was everywhere. I came across several Russian soldiers, the remains of Russian soldiers everywhere. Many of them still inside the armor tanks that had been blown up. As I looked inside these tanks and seeing all these remains or whatever is left of them, my question was, who is this man? Or maybe a woman? This body or whatever is left of it will never be laid to rest. His parents will never have a burial. The soldier was just a number, a wasted young life. Just one out of the 500,000 soldiers killed so far in this battle. In the presence of human remains, I would usually say, like, God, have mercy on their soul. And then I would say, like, God, are you there? Are you seeing what's going on? What have we done? As I sit in my fixer's car, I quickly put on my headphones, and as loud as can be, I listen to the Foo Fighters, not allowing my brain to digest all the scenes I had just witnessed. Heavy rock really helps me at times to keep down these thoughts till this very day. The next day, we came across a school bus, clearly marked with red paint on the bonnet. And on the bonnet, it read, "Children." There were white flags hanging on the mirrors. This is the bus. This bus was full of school kids. The bus had 1,000 bullet holes. Even remembering the thought makes me so anxious. Inside the bus was tiny human remains splattered everywhere. Lots of strands of kids' hair all over the seats. There was blood everywhere. The same ambulance that was trying to go in to rescue them suffered the same fate. Throughout this conflict so far, I have crossed into Ukraine 4 times. 3 times on my own, and 1 time under military protection, because there was a presidential meeting I was attending and working actually. A few months ago, I was offered to join MOAS on a soldier and rescue recovery mission from the Russian front lines. I knew this would be a very risky assignment, and I considered many, many times dropping out. Sleepless nights preceded this assignment, and my anxiety level was so high I couldn't sleep and I couldn't eat. I gave my wife clear instructions on what to do should I have not made it back. It was the first time I had ever done so. While thanking my wife for her constant support, I reminded her that I had a body tracker and that she could track my body anywhere on Earth should anything happen to me. I spent both of my flights locked in the bathroom. My body just would not digest any food. The long train ride began, and very soon I find myself back into Kiev for the 4th time. The next day, we drove for 14 hours east, and our base was only a few kilometers from the front line. In the distance, one could clearly hear gunfire and droves above us. I was told, "Rest, you need to rest." All the extraction missions and rescue missions are done at night. Once it's dark, the Russian drones can't see us. At 1 a.m., I was asked to get ready. Wake up. Please wear every part of protection you have available. The ambulances were actually hidden under large trees down the road due to Russian drones which are constantly surveilling us. We drove around the Russian front line between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. Driving in pitch black, our headlights were turned off. Each hidden checkpoint in pitch black knew we were coming. I kept imagining our ambulance being hit by a missile any minute. A few minutes felt like hours. We entered what seemed to be an abandoned building. From the outside, all boarded up and dark. But inside, we found a makeshift hospital full of wounded soldiers. The smell of human flesh being cut and the sound of the manual saw cutting with the ropes to cut through bone would stay in my head for a very long time. I saw these heroes working on multiple patients at the same time, saving lives one after the other. I felt worthless, just standing there in the corner with my camera. I spent 48 hours working in such conditions that once again, I had so many questions. How the hell was this taking place in Europe in 2024? Once back to our hidden secret base, I warned the team several times. We had drones above us. They said, I'm imagining things, you're anxious, take it easy, this place is safe. This was the bed I spent a couple of days in. The day after I left, actually the next morning, our safe place, or this safe place, was hit by a direct missile strike, thankfully killing nobody, but injuring some of the rescuers. This is the bedroom I slept in. It was blown apart, and I wonder what had been my fate should I have stayed just one more night. On my last day inside Ukraine, I was granted special access to Chernobyl, which was under Ukrainian control again. I climbed to the 22nd floor of one of these abandoned buildings, and I got a great view of what would be the most famous nuclear plant in the world. As I walked around the abandoned village, literally on my own, this is Chernobyl in the middle of a war zone, and time like stood still, and I wondered, in the world's current situation, if Europe or the rest of the world would ever suffer the same fate. If we don't end war, war will one day end us. Thank you.